Okay, hi, I'm Mark, and I really love conferences because at conferences you get to talk to people who are into what they're doing, and such people usually end up making things work, which is also why my talk will feel a bit unusual to you. It's going to feel unusual because we're not going to talk about clever ideas or latest tech or some amazing win. Also won't be talking about AI, except just this once. But instead, we'll look at situations like this one. So we will look at failures and how so many failures trace back to just one single point at the very start of the project, which is great news, because if that's true, then we can just fix all of those things from that point, kind of like all birds, one stone. But yeah, so here's the thing. I've been in this expensive tombstone type of situation, and I heard stories from others, like stories about goals that get moved or changed mid-project, about releases that get postponed or cancelled, and yeah, projects that just get quietly killed for nobody's fault, of course. And my theory is that everybody's been there, and I would like to test that by doing a small poll. So if you could, please. Does it work? I'm new to Slido. Okay, so let's take a few minutes to vote, see where we stand. Okay. So it kind of stops changing. All right, I think there's like a picture forming. So we can see that the majority has been there, but will never tell. Somebody is open to sharing, in which case, actually, like after this, there's going to be my LinkedIn. Please tell me. I love these stories. They are very fun. Post factum. In the moment, they're not. And 27% of people here are perfect. Awesome. Oh, that's the wrong way. All right. So this kind of brings us back to the question of what is this one point where things can go wrong? And actually, it's just the good old documentation, or to be more precise, the lack thereof. So documentation has two things about it. First is that everyone agrees that it's useful, right? The second one is also everybody absolutely hates writing it. And everybody has their own good reasons. But I would like to share my top three, see if you agree. The first one is, of course, the pressure to deliver, because in pretty much any project, the stakeholders want results yesterday, and design doc isn't considered to be progress or result. The second one is that data science, you know, the sexiest job of 21st century, nobody went there to write documentation. I'm pretty sure, like, everybody loves training models. The more pronounceable the name, the better, but not documentation. And finally, I'm still waiting to meet somebody who will tell me that they got promoted or got a raise for a beautifully written design doc. This just never happens. Yeah. So I was in the former camp. These reasons made a lot of sense to me, and you kind of couldn't make me write docs with a gun to my head. I just wanted to code. I just wanted to deliver. But then I changed my mind. And now I love design docs, and I actually refuse to start projects without them, without like at least a decent draft. And my goal for the next 20 or so minutes is to make you curious about design docs as well, and to provide you with some starting points to kind of kick off your doc writing journey. Because I claim that if your team doesn't have a strong doc writing culture, then building it might be the most impactful thing that you can do right now. Right. So for me, this change of heart began with a book called Machine Learning System Design by Valery Babushkin and Arseniy Kravchenko. And this is easily the most practical book I ever read. It's basically full of real-life stories and real-life failures. And they all basically point in the same direction, which is if you skip a section in design doc, you will pay for it down the line, almost surely. The authors do have a lot of stories to tell, because between them it's something like 20 years of leadership experiences in some companies that I think you heard of. Yandex, probably to anybody who speaks Russian, that's a name. For others, I'm not sure. Meta, BP, Alibaba. So pretty data-driven companies. So I think these guys know what they're talking about. Yeah. So I also found a quote by them from this book, which made me think. I think it will make you think, because there are not a lot of things that promise you an almost 100% result, but they do. So we don't have time to really look into how to write design docs, and I also don't want this to be a lecture. So I thought we can do something a bit more fun instead. So for the majority of the remaining time, we're going to be looking into stories that actually happened, of projects that actually failed. Some of them are going to be from my own experience. Some of them are going to be from this book. And what we hope to gain from this are two things. First, you laugh at other people's failure. And second, we will gather a few real failures, a few reasons for projects to fail, and then see that actually all of those seemingly different things could be avoided just by writing a design doc. So let's begin. The first story is about a bank. Banks lend people money, and sometimes people don't pay them back. In that situation, usually banks want to do something, and one of the more peaceful options is to simply send out a reminder, like, hey, you have to pay. Thing is, people usually react differently to such a reminder. It can be positive reaction, such as just pay back your debt, and it can be negative, such as start swearing, cut contact, skip country, any one of those. And this is where this CR, or conversion rate metric, appears. So the banks only want to send reminders to people who are expected to pay back. So they did develop this ML system that aims to improve the CR. It did improve the CR so much that actually the senior vice president of the bank wanted to have a report on this. So they're all excited, they go in, they present their model, like, hey, give us raises or something. But then this is where the ouch moment happens, and basically SVP kind of just goes like, that's a cool CR, but I want to know why are these people paying us back, whereas the others don't? Which is a big problem, because answering the question of why somebody pays and why somebody doesn't is completely different to answering who is going to pay. So they kind of just had to turn around and redo all the work, which kind of sucks. So yeah, this is a case of an incorrect goal, which was set in the beginning. And this was actually not even the first failure in this project. A little bit earlier on the same project in the same bank, it was this moment where your model seems to work on paper. You have very good offline metrics. And it's time to go to production and see if the model can make you some money. So that's what they did. And yeah, what they saw was not very good. So basically, with offline testing CR of 0.9, which is miles ahead of what they had at the time, the online testing CR was just 0.35, which is, I mean, this is kind of an experience that you have to have yourself to fully understand, because like this is terrible. This can happen for a bunch of reasons, like kind of legitimate reasons. But in this case, the issue was with a faulty measurement method. What do I mean? So the data scientists thought that when somebody pays their debt, it gets registered at the same time. In reality, it got registered 3 days later. So yeah, I mean, with that knowledge, kind of you can imagine all kinds of scenarios how this can go wrong. For example, somebody pays their debt without a reminder, gets the reminder, ignores it because they paid. So, and this kind of shows up in your data as a negative, where else actually is just a faulty data point. So this CR was not the true one. Right, but let's leave this bank alone and move on to a certain car rental company where people, turns out, just didn't talk to each other all that much. So in this project, the company wanted to increase conversions using a ranking system. So basically, when you go to the landing page, you see all these cars. And the idea was we're going to make the most we can out of the top row, which is like 3 cars. Top row because that's where people pay attention. So naturally, the team develops a recommendation algorithm. It gets deployed, works for a while, and then a few weeks later, turns out that actually a lot of the recommendations that it was making were being completely ignored. Because, well, the business side just decided that certain cars are not allowed to be shown on the top row for like business reasons, which the data science side was kind of blissfully unaware of. And yeah, this is kind of a classic example of a broken communication between the data and the business. And that's kind of one of the most pervasive problems out there that I have seen. One of, but not the only one. That's the same car rental company, this time working on staff planning. So what is staff planning? So the company has branches, which are places where agents hand out cars to people. And the question is, how many agents would you want to have at a given branch at a given time? Because if you have too many agents, then you're kind of paying them for nothing. If you have too few, well, then people will have to wait, and that's bad customer experience. So in such a planning, predicting demand is useful. So that's what the local data team developed. And then the problem that we kind of saw already happened in the sense that models that were good on paper didn't end up being good practically speaking. But this time the issue was the metric that was being optimized. So the problem is the standard regression metrics such as root mean square error, which was mentioned today already, or like MAPE or something like this, they don't really capture the business side of this. There are a lot of nuances to predicting demand, which are not incorporated in these metrics. For example, if you have a branch which typically processes hundreds of people every hour, and you overpredict by 10 people, not a big deal. Really not a big deal. Nobody's probably going to even notice. But if you make the same mistake for a small branch, which does like 3 people an hour, well, people are going to have to wait. So yeah, the issue is that the metrics that are standard, they are so easy. We like to move fast and we like easy choices, but they are not always good for the business. And on the other hand, sometimes we do things in a way that's way more complicated than it needs to be. Are there here any people who have developed ML models and later found out that you actually could just use some simple non-parametric baseline to do the job just as well? Okay, a few people who are ready to admit this. But basically, this is what happened here. So a certain company wanted to improve on another model that was predicting like travel time estimates, and trained kind of a second model which improves the predictions of the first model, which sounds complicated and sounds like it demands a complicated solution as well. But yeah, basically it's a kind of tale of wasted effort, because later, after the model was deployed and tested, and like this takes a bunch of time, but it just like came out that there was a median baseline which you can code in like 5 minutes, and it does the job just as well. So yeah, skipping baseline, never a good idea, even if the problem seems complex. We're gonna do one more, and this is kind of a pretty good one, because it shows that it's not just about tech and not just about communication. Sometimes it's about missing processes in the company. And another thing it does, it debunks the myth that the documentation is only for big corporations. Because now we're talking about a small startup which was running an A/B test of a model that was fairly critical for business, a very like money-making model type of stuff. And everything was looking great. They were beating the crap out of the current champion model. Everybody happy. CTO was already actually planning like a meeting where the whole company can give kudos to data scientists. And during preparations for like this meeting, where they're supposed to receive like, eternal fame, it came out that the results that were so promising are actually completely fake. In fact, what happened is that due to the lack of proper monitoring and reporting, the results of the champion model, which is the model that the test aims to beat, got overwritten by one of the earlier iterations of the challenger model, which was kind of crappy, so easy to beat a bit later. Yeah, I mean, like, when I imagine this, right? Like, you put in the work, you iterate, starts looking good. This is an important model, and everybody is already super happy. And the CTO is making this meeting where you will tell everybody how much money you just earned, and probably get some promotion yourself. And then it's just gone like this because, yeah. So what, right? We've seen quite a few ways to fail, like faulty measurement mechanism, wrong goals, broken communication, skipped baselines, lack of proper monitoring, raw metrics. So by now you probably kind of wonder, do projects even succeed in machine learning? And the answer is, yes, they do. But you need to do the groundwork first. This is where I tell you that none of this would have happened if in these projects people just put together a design doc before starting the project. Because design doc brings structure into what is otherwise a pretty chaotic process. Like, this is kind of an outline of a table of contents, a lot of text. The point is not to read it, but the point is that each one of these problems would have had a section that is dedicated to it. And yeah, like, just think about these fails. They're not really some super complicated, impossible to anticipate issues, right? They're basically just oversights. People who were on these projects, they had too many other things to think about, so they just forgot. Yeah, so basically that's the idea of why you might want a design doc. It makes you think about things that you have to think about, write them down, which dramatically increases the chances of not walking into such traps. Okay, so by now I hope you're convinced to at least give design docs a chance to see it as an investment and not just some empty bureaucracy. If not, it's okay. Failing is a choice too. But I also promise to give you some pointers in case you are convinced, like how to start. The first tip is pretty much what we were talking about this whole time. First doc, then you code. Basically, yeah, be like this guy with a blueprint and not like this guy with a backwards weird table who clearly didn't plan for it. So the typical time to draft a doc is 2 weeks maybe. It may sound like a lot, but imagine somebody offered you a deal. You can put in 2 weeks now, or months, or sometimes even years later. So I would take that deal. Second tip is that ensure that everybody who is in any way involved in the project reads the document and ideally contributes. What do I mean when I say everyone? Well, I mean everyone. This is the last movie reference in this presentation, so yeah. But yeah, basically here you're gathering context, right? You want to know why you're doing what you're doing, what you're hoping to achieve. So by getting this context, you'll get this why, which will shape the what and the how. Speaking of what and how, um, basically the next tip is to get your problem space and solution spaces straight. So problem space always comes first. This is a concept that is known in design systems, and it's explored in the book that I recommended, but also in a lot of other places. In a very small nutshell, basically the idea is when you start a project, you start with the why questions. So with the product questions, because they will inform the how and the what. This could have been like separate topic for a presentation, so I think I'll just leave it here. But yeah, if you didn't hear about it, check it out. Next tip is that the design doc will change. Over time, it's not something that you write once and then it just stays the same forever. It will change, and sometimes quite drastically over its lifetime. So don't kind of chase perfection and spend a lot of time on any single version. The authors actually give this example of like design doc lifecycle, and as you can see, it's pretty much expected to change every once in a while. All right, last tip. We discussed that design doc brings you structure. You might be wondering, where can you get the structure? First, I do recommend reading the book. It's pretty good. If you don't want to, there's going to be, in a few slides, there's going to be a QR code which links a repository by one of the authors who basically published a few examples that you can use. Okay, we're almost done. Basically, now comes the exclusive content. When I was preparing for the presentation, I reached out to the book authors and I asked for a slide-sized piece of advice for anybody who wants to write docs from now on. And they actually both replied, which is nice. So yeah, let's read it. Valery says that a true mark of a good design document is killing a doomed project early, and recommends you waste paper, not time and money. This is deep. It exposes one of the core functions of a design doc, because a lot of ML projects that are out there, they shouldn't be out there. Like there are literally like tons of other ways to do the same thing, faster, cheaper, and not waste time and energy. Arseny says a bit more. First, a design doc isn't meant to be the final truth. So it's not kind of something that's there just to be there. Don't write just to write. It's a tool for clarity and for getting everybody on the same page. So yeah, it's gotta be careful. Then he comments the concept of problem versus solution space, which I second, and recommends again a special section in the design doc, which is quite often overlooked in practice, and that section is error analysis. Yeah, I mean, that's once again could be a different topic, so let's just stop there. A few QR codes in case you're interested. So I linked the book from Amazon. You can also buy it anywhere else you want, if you want. And the free design doc repo from Valery. That's open source, so you can just kind of copy paste the structure from there. I'll just pause here a second. Okay, I think a few phones left. Don't put them too far away. Because I was allowed to, do a Wolt shout out here because we're hiring. This is basically the career page that I pre-filtered for Germany and IT roles, but honestly, just check out the career page yourselves. We also post the roles on LinkedIn. Yeah, in case you are searching. Right. Then thank you. That's all I had for you. If you want to be friends, here's my contact information. Yeah, thank you for listening, and now we'll have questions.
Thank you for the presentation, Mark. I think it was a very interesting presentation because the past few 5 talks that we've had, it's focused on a lot of what we're doing. And this was a presentation about, or at least it makes you think about how we do things. So I think it's a really nice way to wrap it up. Let's open the floor up for questions. All right, I see hands. Okay.
Okay. I have a question. I don't see how writing a design document would solve all of the problems that you mentioned. Like, for example, a wrong metric, it's not obvious in the beginning until you implement it and see it doesn't work. Or overwriting the main model with some earlier iteration. This is a purely technical bug, and I don't see how design document can solve such a problem.
Thank you for the question. So the design doc is written by many people, right? You don't write it alone. If you do, don't bother. And the point is like metrics, right? You said metrics. When somebody writes the metrics section and says like offline, we're going to use these metrics to evaluate. Online, we're going to use other metrics, like usually they're different. Somebody is going to read that, and somebody's gonna ask, okay, why? And the answer, because I know this metric and it's cool, is not a good answer. So design doc kind of fosters the critical thinking culture. That's kind of the point here. And regarding the A/B test example, basically in the design doc, it's usually outlined how you're going to, what you're going to report, what is a report, how is it stored, where is it stored, and how to find any single result. And this minimizes the possibility of just overwriting the same experiment because you forgot to change the name in the config, let's say. So does that help? No?
Kinda.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the great presentation. Actually, I love documentation, but I have some questions. And especially since you said it's written, you had this nice slide where you can see actually that a lot of people are contributing, right?
You mean with
this one before, like
go. Okay. This one?
No, the one where you see first iteration, then 60% changed, etc.
This one.
Yeah, so okay. A lot of people are contributing to this, and it only works if everybody reads it. I think this is the first problem that will never happen, that people will read a document that is so extensive, that the one that you showed with the 100 points. I mean, I give it, if people would do it, it would help. But then we come to this iteration. And now you say, okay, if everybody reads it and everybody thinks critical, then we don't have 10 points, but 5,000. And because everybody wants to discuss everything, like have a meeting, I don't know what your experiences are, but if you sit in a meeting with 10 people and everybody has an opinion to decide on something, either some people will stand back and just say, okay, I will stay quiet. I will just carry whatever will be decided and push that. And if you have other people who try to actually say, okay, I have my own opinion, I critically think, and I think this might be wrong or questionable, this list might be never ending, and in the same way also the iterations over the document. So even in case everybody reads it, and even in case everybody understands it, and even in case you do not have to first try something out in order to understand that it doesn't work, like the wrong metric, for example. this will be a massive time eater. And I mean, as I said, I love documentation. I would love this to work, but how do you do it? So you say, like, all stakeholders are involved in this, right? So also people who are no machine learning experts. So they might have questions where you yourself say, yeah, but
Okay, I think
Okay.
I get your point, and you are right in the sense that nothing works 100% of the time, and even when it does, it doesn't work to 100% of the, doesn't cover all possible cases of failure, because it's true that not everyone will read and contribute. This is what you should be striving for, because the more people read it and the more people contribute, the less chances you have to fail, right? But it's a culture. Like, I can tell you that I've been in a company where people kind of refuse to do it, and there's been a few failed projects there, like which were failed in a funny way, and the company where people were open to it, and after a few iterations, right, like we wrote one design doc for a project, went kind of okay. People kind of was like, yeah, I'll read it. Maybe I don't want to write it, but I'll at least read it and ask questions. The next time it was a bit better, and next time a bit better. So I think it's a process, basically. The goal is that more and more people understand that it's important, because if they do, they will contribute.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. It was nice, really great. Sam, actually, my question would be an extension of your question. So at what point you decide that the documentation is over, is finalized?
When the project is completely retired and is no longer used and will never be used again.
So I thought the main idea was to prevent that failure.
That's true, but it's also like you get a lot of side benefits, such as, I mean, if you have onboarded in a company that does software and they didn't have good docs, you probably know a lot, like what pain is, right?
Yeah.
you kind of have to read everything that they ever wrote in every source that they ever created, and that's not good. Whereas if you have the design doc, you just kind of send one link and get all the context. Right.
Actually, I just wanted to mean that, so before finalizing it, you start working on the project, and then you get the feedback and rewrite the whole documentation, and it keeps going on like that, like an iteration process, or you finalize the documentation first, and then you start the project.
I mean, you do a draft, right? In this draft, you will at least have a clear why, like why are you doing what you're doing? How does success look like? Do you think you can achieve this by not spending months or years on machine learning models? Maybe you can write a few ifs, in Python and be done. It's like it starts with broad strokes, right? Because any project starts like this. It's a crude solution at first, and then it gets a bit refined as kind of project progresses.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for the presentation. I'm just going to follow up with the Bjorn question, because let's imagine that everyone is excited about the design doc and everyone wants to contribute to it. But yes, the main question is like, who's going to resolve all the challenges and all the contradictions between opinions, and how is it actually solved that we are saying like, okay, right now, we discuss it, it's enough, we move on, here's the decision on some of the points. Because like, as the docu is huge, the discussions could be about different points and also can take a lot of time. Thanks.
True. And for me, time boxing works. Usually you agree with the team that, okay, we're going to spend 2 weeks on this, for example. Like 2 weeks is a good time, actually. It really works. And after 2 weeks, you have what you have.
But who's going to resolve the conflicts? Like, who has this responsibility? You also said, because of the example that, maybe it was Brian, that we had like some different people, right, from different fields contributing to this project, to this document. Who's going to say like the last word there?
I mean, there are a lot of sections, right? A lot of areas of expertise. On the why questions, usually the stakeholders do because they are the ones, they are kind of the clients, the ones who decide what they want. On the technical side, it's like any other conflict. If the team has good, culture and they can make decisions together, then the team. If they have, totalitarianism, then team lead. But like it's basically the same as any other conflict that you will have.
Okay, thanks.
Do you have any practical tips on to like get the leadership on board with such practices? Because in times as we have right now, where you have to learn everything about agentic AI and be on top with the newest models, they usually don't want you to write 2 weeks of documentation. I really like the stuff you presented, but I'm convinced that at the company I'm currently working at, we won't get 2 weeks to implement something like this. And maybe we could get like 3 hours, Fridays, and then that's it.
So,
but do you have any practical experience and like how to
I
evolve
do,
this
I
culture
do.
change? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a history of change actually, unfortunately, but it's a very good question, and it's a real question because like pressure to deliver. First reason not to write documentation. One idea is to kind of let them fail a bit. No, I mean seriously. A few times, like you suggested, they say no. Say okay, you're the boss. You go ahead. Something happens to the project. It gets delayed. It gets canceled. Something. You come back. You say remember. They're like okay. You go design doc. No. Okay. And you can repeat. Like it doesn't guarantee result because unfortunately there is no 100% way, like sure way to convince people that you're right, even if you are. But it's one way to do it. It's a long way.
Any hands? No hands. All right. All right. We're done with the question and answers.